If you're looking for mini scrapbook and junk journal ideas, I have them for you. I'm showing you 3 ways to make a mini vintage coffee mug book, plus mini pockets, mini tags, a printing trick for your printables, and some really fun stamping techniques. Here we go, y'all. Well, hello and welcome to Pink Paper Peppermints. My name is Melissa and I'm so glad you're here today. It is week 1 of the My Heart of Thanksgiving journaling event on Instagram. And if you don't know what that is, I've got some information on the screen for you there. You can get a free starter kit in my shop. Just go to my shop at pinkpaperpeppermints.com and download your kit there. And it's got all the information that you need. Well, I want to first start by saying thank you so much for sharing the videos last week. I really appreciate that. It does so much for my channel, and I just can't thank you enough for all the likes and the comments and the shares. It just really means a lot to me, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about the questions that you had. First was this paper. You asked me if this was included in the pattern paper kit, and it is. This is the paper that I used to design the insert cover, and it is included in the kit. It doesn't show in the preview because I actually added it later. So if you purchased the bundle, you should have gotten an update email saying that that paper was added, and you can go and download that. And the second question was about the mini inks. They are archival inks from Ranger, and I will put a link in the description below to those inks, but you can get them at most craft stores. And I really like the bright colors, and some of them are actually muted colors, but they're just really rich colors. And the mini size makes them so easy and convenient to use, so I really love those. So today I am going to work on my title page and my prompt card page, and then I'm also going to show you some fun ideas with the mini mug book on how to put it together, a couple of different ways for how to put it together, and also some fun little pocket ideas and stamping ideas, just a lot of fun stuff to show you. But first, the title page. I decided that I wanted to use the little pots and pans. Since I didn't get to use those on the cover, I wanted to use those on my title page. So I got those out, and as I laid them out, I decided definitely needed at least one extra layer underneath them. So I went for a doily, of course, and I think I'm going to use doilies a lot in this book because they just seem to go so well with the cooking, baking theme that we have going on. And so I added those all on, and that was my insert title page, and I really liked how that came out. And then I wanted to make a little pocket for my prompt card. And I wanted to use this little tab and put my prompt card on its side so that I could use the tab for all of the week 1 pages, because I know I'm going to be doing more than one. And so I knew that it would be, I wanted it to pull out face up. So on the back, I wanted to put one of the flashcards, and I thought Gather was the perfect one since we're gathering together and gathering our supplies this week. And so I decided to sew that on the back, and I wanted to use a clear pocket so you could still see it even though it was in the pocket. So I got out my trusty stash of packaging that I always save and decided to create a pocket with that. So I'm just going to sew around the 3 edges of that pocket, and here is my prompt card. I left it open between the flash card and the prompt card, so that's an extra little hidden pocket there. And now I'm just going to sew around the 3 sides of that clear packaging, and I'm going to add a little bit of lace to it. That's a scrap of lace left over from the cover that I sewed, and I'm going to add that there. But I don't want the sewing to show on my title page. Normally I do, but in this case I didn't, so I'm just adding an extra piece of paper there, and then that will create an additional pocket between the title page and the page that I'm working on, and we'll probably address that next week. I've got an idea of how I want to use that. So I'm just pulling out some bits and pieces from my little scrap container there because I want to make a pocket for my mug book when I get it finished, and I've got a little mug there to kind of guide me in the sizing. And these scraps were left over from the live stream when I stamped some things to show you the new stamps. And this is a transparency, and this actually has my devotional that I posted for this first week. And this year I really wanted to save a lot of what we do together on Instagram, so my devotionals and some of the pictures and some of the things that we do together, and I wanted to include that in my book this year because that's a big part of the event for me. So you can see that I've sewn the pocket now. I added the lace, and I've added the lace and the little bits and pieces on this pocket, and I realized when I put the mug in that if my mini mug book is going to be a junk journal, it's going to be really thick, I know. So I knew that that pocket was going to be way too small for it. So I decided to make it an expandable pocket. And so the way to do that is super simple. You're just going to take, I've just used a scrap here. You're going to take a little piece of paper and you're going to accordion fold it into 3 pieces. And then you're going to glue one side to the paper. In my case, I'm going to sew it to the paper, but you can glue or sew. And then the other side to your book page. And when you do that, you create an expandable pocket, kind of like those expandable file folders. You're just creating a little accordion fold on each side of your pocket, and that's going to make it so that I can put a big chunky book in that pocket. Okay, now I'm back from the sewing machine and I've attached my transparency and some pom-poms and a little tab to the opposite page. And I've also attached my accordion flaps to the sides of my pocket with a zigzag stitch. And I'm going to use some adhesive to attach that to the page. And then I'm going to sew it along the bottom with a simple back stitch, just really close to the bottom, just to give it some extra room. And also I don't want any glue along that bottom part. Okay, so now we're going to make our mini mug book, and it comes with 6 colored single pages and then some double neutral pages and 6 different color mugs. And the mugs the handles are all facing different ways. So when you do a book and you put them back to back, if you want the handles to be on the same side, you'll have to use 2 different color mugs. So a brown and an orange one, or a blue and a yellow one, unless you do this little trick that I'm about to show you. Now you see on this, my logo is backwards. That's because I've printed it in mirror image. So if you go into the settings on your printer, and it's going to be different on every printer. I wish I could give you better directions, but go in and find the mirror image setting. It's going to look something like this, and make sure that's checked for this part, and print your mugs in the mirror image. Print one the right way, and then print one in mirror image, and now you will have 2 pink mugs that the handles will be on the opposite sides, so you can have a pink on both sides if that's what you want. So this first book that I'm going to show you is really fun. It's a little tab book, and what we're going to do is create a pocket from the 2 mugs, and we're going to sew or glue around the edges. You just want to make sure your pages can slide in and out because it's going to be a pocket. So make sure that if you glue, that you just have a very tiny strip of glue around the edges so that that page can come in and out easily of your pocket. And so what I did was just a single back stitch around the edges, really, really close to the edge to give myself lots of room for my tab pages. And if you find that your pocket is really tight and you're having trouble getting your pages in, one thing that you can do is just kind of open it up a little bit with your fingers and put a couple of fingers in and just spread it apart and squeeze with one hand so that it kind of opens up and just bends those paper fibers a little bit to open it up, and then you'll find it's a lot easier to slip your tabbed pages into the pocket. So for the pages, what I've chosen to do is to type my scriptures for each one of the 3 prompt words for this week. And to do that, I just used a little bit of washi tape and taped them onto a scrap piece of paper and ran them through my typewriter. I did the same thing with the mini labels. I used the mini labels that come with the prompt cards, and those are free in the starter kit. And they're in a strip, so that makes them easy to put through the typewriter. And I used my new pink typewriter ribbon, which I will link in the comments below, the place that I found colored typewriter ribbon, and it works in my vintage typewriter, so most likely it will work in yours too if you have one. So I wanted to show you, when you cut these out, because they're so tiny, remember that the best way to get around sharp edges or sharp corners is to turn your paper and not your scissors. So you see how I'm holding my scissors steady and I'm actually turning my paper around that curve. And I know some of you may have had some problems with that with the fussy cutting, and that works on all fussy cutting. If you will turn the paper instead of the scissors, it'll give you a much cleaner edge, and it's just easier to get around on those details. So now to attach those, I just ran them through my sewing machine and did a straight stitch across the bottom, but of course you could staple them on or use adhesive to put them on. And then you also have a plain back, so you could journal on the back or add photos or type more scriptures on the back. So now I'm just going to tuck this into my little pocket that I made, and we're going to move on to journal number 2. For this one, we're just going to do a traditional journal that we're going to sew down the side to create a little cover and binding. And you can see I've done the mirror image trick with this. So I have 2 brown cups, and the handles are on opposite sides so that we can put them back to back, or inside to inside, should I say. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can just glue the handle, and then add your pages in. I'm actually going to sew down the side. Then you've got double pages like this, and they come in just an almond color, and then on the back you can print the different patterns. So I've printed polka dots and plaids, and those are from the pattern paper kit. Those don't actually come in the mug kit, so you would need to get the pattern paper kit to do that. Otherwise, you can just have plain paper. You could also print on the back of ledger paper or any pattern paper that you have, and get your mug pages that way. And what you're going to do is sew down the center of that page, or you could just do a little pamphlet stitch, and that's where you poke holes in the center and just pull your string through and just tie it in a little bow. Once you do that, this part I actually did record for you, and for some reason it didn't record. But basically you're just going to take the first page of your book and the last page of your book and glue them to the covers. And you can see I'm kind of pulling it up there to show you. Those yellow plaid pages are the first and last pages, and I've just glued them to the covers of the book. And that's how you attach your pages into your book. And I didn't really add anything here, but you could also do add-ins before you make all those attachments. So we're going to come back to that book and decorate it in just a minute, but first I wanted to show you one other way that you could put this book together. I've printed the mugs on cardstock in this case because this particular way it works better if you have a really heavy cardstock cover. And I'm using the single colored pages as my pages, and I just want to line all of these up, the pages and the covers, and I'm going to line them up in the top left-hand corner of my book. So I'm going to put the bottom cover down and then the pages and then the top cover, and make sure they're all lined up in that top left-hand corner. And then we're going to punch a hole, and I'm using my We Are Memory Keepers punch, but you could use any hole punch for this, or even you could even use a sewing needle and go one at a time and punch a little hole. But I'm punching a hole in that top left corner. Everything's all lined up, and now I'm going to use a colored brad and poke that through, and now that's it. I've completed my book. I've made a little flip book, and so you can flip out the pages and see each page. And the fun part about this type of little book is that you can undo the brad and add more pages or add different things to it even after you've completed it. So let's go back to our mini junk journal book and decorate. And the first thing that I want to do is create a little mini pocket. And I'm using one of the single pages as my pocket. And I just lined it up there, and it was a little bit wide. So I want to trim it down just a little bit so that it fits a little better on that front page, cover page there. And then I'm just going to snip off the top to create my pocket, and I can use that top piece for something else later. And that's going to be my pocket in the front, and I'm going to add a little bit of doily to give it some layering. And you can see that I'm doing that here. And then I want to stamp on it. And I want to show you a really fun trick with the stamping. And so I've decided that's definitely what I want to do, but I'm going to wait to glue everything together until I finish stamping. I'm using my Archival mini ink in sepia and my pretty new stamp set made with love. And I'm going to use the heart as the center, but I wanted to use the little leaves, the little vine that are part of the other stamp. It's a flower stamp, but the heart is a little wider than the flower, so it doesn't actually fit in between the leaves. So I want to show you a trick for using those leaves with other shapes, even if they're a bit larger. So the first thing that I'm doing here is stamping up my stamp, inking up my stamp, I should say, and I'm going to lay a piece of paper down to cover everything but the left-hand leaf. So you see there, now I've just stamped the left-hand leaf, and I got a little bit of ink there, but that's okay. I'm going to cover up with my heart, and I'm laying my heart down to make sure it's all going to fit on the pocket where I want it to. And now I'm going to cover up that left-hand leaf that I stamped with a piece of scratch paper, and I'm going to stamp the right-hand leaf. And that paper is blocking off the rest of the stamp, so now all I have are those two leaves with just enough room in the center for my heart. Isn't that a fun trick? And that's called masking. So we're just masking off part of the stamp so we can add in another stamp. And so there's the finished product. I really love how that came out. And then I've sewn my little doily to the back of the pocket, and now I've already got some glue on the page, so I'm just pressing my pocket into the glue, and now my little mini pocket in the front of my mini book is all finished and ready for some tags or something. So now I want to stamp with my little crochet doily stamp, and I'm doing it in black ink this time because I'm going to color it with some colored pencils when I'm finished. And I'm just giving it some firm pressure and stamping it down. And then I want to add the thankful sentiment to the bottom of that. So I'm just going to stamp that down. And before I color it, I want to let it dry. If you don't let your ink dry thoroughly, it will tend to smudge, and which is usually what I do. But I don't want you to do that. So make sure and let your ink dry thoroughly before you color it in. While we're waiting for that to dry, let's work on a little cover image. And I want to show you another fun way to use the stamps where you can combine some of the images to create a title page. And so what I'm going to use are the flowers. And I showed you last week how they have kind of a curve to them. So we're going to use that in our design. We're going to have it curving downward first. So I'm going to ink it up, and on the top flower I'm going to have it curving downward. As you can see here, I'm going to do that kind of towards the top of my little piece of paper. I've just printed out some of the biscuit colored pattern paper, solid paper I should say, and now I'm going to stamp the sentiment in the middle. The Lord is my shepherd. I'm stamping that right in the center, but of course you could stamp any sentiment in the center. And now I'm going to turn it upside down so that the curve is going up, and I'm going to stamp that right at the bottom. And I'm just lining it up to make sure that that center flower is lined up. And that creates just a pretty little kind of floral frame around our sentiment. And so that's going to be our title page on the cover of our mini journal. And so now I've finished decorating, and I'm going to flip through and show you all the little things that I did. Another fun way to use the stamps, as you see here, is to stamp on key tags. And that small decorative piece, small decorative stamp will fit perfectly in a key tag, as will the little heart stamp that fits perfectly in the middle as well. I added my title by sewing it, as you saw there, and I made these little tags just using the labels from the kit. I just folded those in half and stapled some ribbon on the top and created little tiny mini tags for my pocket there. You can see here I've colored in my stamp, and I added some mini rickrack to the top and bottom of the page. Here I've got this little oven mitt is actually one of the free printables that my newsletter subscribers will be receiving this month and next month. So if you're not subscribed, you might want to do that. On this page, I used my slide frames, and I don't know if you remember the video I did with my slides where I showed you how to create your own slides by printing on transparency. Well, I was going to do that here, but I kind of liked the way it looked when I cut it out. In the solid form, it looked like a real little picture, so I decided to add that there. On this page, I've just created a little tag from some of the ephemera and some little flip outs. I created a little mini page wrap by just adding some twine around the book and wrapping that little page, that little piece of ephemera around the twine. Here I've used the mini tabs and some of the ephemera, the little bread flip out there, and another receipt tag. This little cookie jar is another free gift from my newsletter subscribers, and I just made a little tip out there and another little tag with those labels from the kit. That 25-cent ticket is actually from the mini book kit from last year's Heart of Thanksgiving, and that's in my shop. If you don't have that one, if you weren't with us then, you can still get that. And then on the next page, I've just wrapped a label around the page and sewed it at the bottom to create a little tuck spot. And I made, just out of scrap paper, I made a little tag there. And then that's a little tag made from ephemera from that kit from last year. And then I added a pie. Of course, you have to have pie, and a pumpkin and a little word art there on the back page. And that is our Junk Journal mini album. Well, if you're interested in either the giant journaling tags or the stamp set and you would like to get one of those, just send me a DM on Instagram with your PayPal email address, or you can email me if you're not on Instagram with your PayPal email address, and I will send you an invoice for those. I have a new shipment of tags in, but I am not going to reorder the stamps because they're special edition just for this event, and I have a few left. But if you want to get one of those, be sure and let me know right away. Well, next week I am so excited because we're doing giant journaling tag ideas. So be sure and join me for that. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you would share it with a crafty friend or give me a thumbs up. And I hope that you have a week filled with peace and grace, and I will see you next time here on Pink Paper Peppermints.